So if you've been debating back and forth with yourself about whether or not you should open up a second Etsy shop, I'm going to be sharing with you guys today both the pros and cons to doing so. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hey, hi, hello, my name is Lauren. In today's video, I am sharing with you guys some different pros and cons to opening up a second Etsy shop. So this might be for my friends who already have a main Etsy shop where you're making good sales, but you're thinking about opening a second one to maybe sell a different item or just kind of broaden your reach and maybe even create a bit more of income. I'll be sharing the pros and cons on the screen today for you guys so that you can actually see them as we go along. So without further ado guys, let's go ahead and jump on into it. So I have moved over on my screen so I can put over here two little post-it notes for you guys where I'm going to have the pros and the cons when it comes to opening up your second Etsy shop. I'm going to start off with the pros first today and then I'll move into the cons afterwards so that you guys can see both. Pro number one, and is a big reason why a lot of people open a second Etsy shop, is because it allows for more income. So if you are trying to increase your income or trying to make this a full-time job, that is a great way to do so. As long as your first shop has shown success and you kind of know the tips and tricks and ways to get there, then there shouldn't be any reason why you shouldn't see success in your second shop as well. So being able to apply some of those same things that you've learned from your first shop and your main shop to your second one can definitely be helpful in bumping up that income. Another great thing about opening a second Etsy shop is the ability to kind of cross promote. So if you have two items and your market is pretty similar for both, or you have similar customers that you're kind of aiming towards, you can absolutely sell them to each other. You can actually promote both within each other's shops. So you can include things like listings to items from one shop to another. You could also share your different promotions across social media, or build one social media platform where you talk about both, but then you have them linked separately out. So whatever way you want to do that, but it's a great way to draw traffic to both of them. The third benefit to opening up a second Etsy shop is to have a wider range of customers. So all the time here on my channel, I do talk about niching down or finding your ideal client and what you want to sell them. Well, sometimes you can't sell them everything, but you might have a passion for creating something else. So if you are interested in making a whole nother item, let's say for example, you really love print-on-demand shirts, but you also love cross-stitching, you know, like two completely different things, then you might want to open up that second Etsy shop so you can truly have something that you're enjoying doing. And as long as you're able to balance the other one, then you should have no problem. Another big plus to opening up a second Etsy shop would be if you are in print on demand or into creating digital items, because you can actually create multiple shops and just sell like one very specific type of item on there. And then that way you're really niche down and you have that really good target audience. But then you can also branch out by opening up multiple shops. Again, so long as you can balance them, you shouldn't have an issue. But you can actually sell more of these items, and because they are passive, you'll see less back-end work and more just upfront work of creating those actual items. And my last pro would be to have a backup shop. So there are lots of stories out there about Etsy shutting down shops for not meeting regulations and following rules, and sometimes people seem to think it happens out of nowhere and they're not sure why, but this was their main business, this was their main hustle, and they're now left without their shop and without their money in their business. So opening up a second shop can definitely be a nice kind of cushion in case something like that were to happen to you. Now, I will say you cannot sell the same item in two separate shops like that. So if I had a t-shirt that's all about some Southern saying and then I sell the same one in my other shop, that is not allowed in Etsy's regulations and rules. So just make sure that you read through those carefully, because that is not going to be a great way to start your second shop. Your second shop should be something different from your first shop. So definitely want to keep that in mind as you're creating the second one. But I also do think that it can be a great backup if something like that were to happen. And if you've been building it up over time, then you've got this nice little extra cushion to kind of catch your fall in case that happens. Now that I've shared some of our pros, we're going to go through and I'm going to share some of our cons as well. Con number one of opening a second Etsy shop is loss of focus. So if you have a main shop and it's doing really well and you spent so much time on it and you've been building it and you've been growing it over time, and then you go and you try and open up a second Etsy shop and you stop spending so much time on that main one and you kind of forget about it and you let it fall to the wayside, your sales are obviously going to go down and you're not going to see as many results anymore. So you've kind of, put in all this extra work to open a second shop, but it's not really going to work for you unless you can kind of balance the two of them. So if you don't have that extra time, I probably wouldn't suggest it, because it can be overwhelming to try and balance multiple shops, especially if you're trying to stay really consistent with them. That's why I mentioned earlier in our pros, it might be fun to open a second Etsy shop if you have a creative project or thing that you like to do just for fun, but you're not wanting to track the measurements, like be crazy about increasing your sales or driving traffic. Like, you're just doing this for fun. And if people happen to buy it along the way, then great. That would be a great instance in maybe opening a second shop. But if you are opening a second shop and you want it to be as big or better than your first shop, then you need to make sure that you have the time in order to do that first. Which is kind of my second point, which was, again, time. Time and focus kind of go with each other. And as I was mentioning in the first point, when you are talking about focus, you're talking about spending that time on growing your shop and building it and making new items. Well, if you take that focus and that time away from that main shop and you're putting it all into a second shop, you're going to obviously go down in some sales, or you might see a decrease in your main shop as well. So making sure that you have a plan or a schedule that you can use to really help you focus on building the second shop while still maintaining your first is definitely the goal. Now, this might be great as well if your first shop you feel like has gotten to a good kind of plateau area and you want to kind of just leave it where it's at. You're not really focused on growing it, but you're not going to let it go down either. You're kind of just maintaining it. That might be a good time to bring in that second shop so that all of this is very evened out. You know your daily routines. You know what needs to be done to keep everything going and rolling. Well, then now is a great time to open up that second shop, because you do have a little bit more time in order to, put into it and invest in it. Another con would be with consistency. One of the main struggles that I've had with having multiple shops is staying consistent across all of them at the same time. And that's kind of where things can get overwhelming, because if you're constantly creating new listings and you are constantly trying to respond back to customer service emails and you're buying shipping supplies and shipping out items and doing research and all the stuff with keywords and branding, that can be quite overwhelming, and so your consistency tends to fall off. So you might be really ramped up and ready to go whenever you're first starting your shop and you're uploading new listings all the time and it's great. Well, then over time, it might start to trickle off because you realize that it's more work than you intended, or it's taking up more time than you could handle. So again, like all of the con points kind of go together, but you can honestly, if you can honestly sit back and say, I have the time for this, I have the resources for this, and I have the dedication to it, then a second shop is definitely going to be good for you. And my last con of opening a second Etsy shop is going through the whole brand new process of opening a shop, which can be very, very overwhelming. You might have opened your first Etsy shop years ago. And so if you're having to go back through that process of restarting a whole new Etsy shop, it's going to look a lot different. Not to mention, it is a lot of upfront work. You're creating a banner, you're creating a logo, you're creating a rememberable name. You're probably making social media, you're filling out your about me and all of your information of your shop. Well, then you're creating your items and you've got to figure out photography, you've got to figure out coloring and branding and who is your market. These are all things you're going to have to start thinking about when it comes to this new shop. Not to mention things like policies and keywords and tags and titles and descriptions. Do you want to start an emailing list? Like, all of this stuff are things you're going to have to completely rethink when it comes to this new brand and new Etsy shop. So that's definitely going to take up a lot of your time, and you might want to plan for that if you're opening up your second shop, because it can get a little overwhelming if you think about it all at once. But if you can break it up and chunk it up into little pieces to complete over time and just slowly build up that process, It'll probably be good. So there you have it, guys, the pros and the cons to opening up a second Etsy shop. I hope that you have found this video informative or helpful. Maybe it gave you a good idea of whether or not you're going to open up your second Etsy shop. If you are, I would love to know down below what your main shop sells and also what you want to sell in your new second Etsy shop. Now, if you're not opening up your second Etsy shop, I still want to know what you sell in your main one. That is my favorite thing to ask you guys here on my channel because I love seeing what you guys sell. Some of y'all are so creative. It's so fun to look at. Like, I love it. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm going to go ahead and link for you guys another Etsy related video that I think you'll love to watch next, as well as my entire Etsy playlist where you guys can go and binge watch a ton of Etsy related tips, tricks, and advice videos. I'm also going to put my subscribe button right here. I upload new videos every week on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. so you guys can stick around for more of those. And lastly, I opened my second YouTube channel where I am sharing more kind of lifestyle related content. So if you guys want to go and check out my second channel, I'll have a link right here for you. And without further ado, guys, that brings us to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you all in my next one. Bye, guys.